You're listening to The Women in the Arena. I'm your host, Paige Renee, former collegiate athlete turned leadership entrepreneur for women just like you. Each week, I'm bringing you a new person or message to help you expand and elevate into the woman you know you're meant to be. Now, let's step into the arena. Hey, you guys, we are back inside the arena, and I can't wait to introduce you to our guest today. So before I do, I have to tell you how we met. So you guys know that I'm Fayetteville, Arkansas based, and in the business world, there's a ton of people on the West Coast. Well, I was at a business conference recently, and I had the pleasure of speaking alongside our podcast guest today. And it was so funny because we were on a business panel together, and I could hear her answers, and I'm like, man, this person knows what she's doing. She's got it going on. We've got to get together. And so here we are, and we're bringing our conversation to you guys because it is going to be extremely valuable. So we have Shelby Fowler-Moss, who is the owner of Fempire Media. She's been in business for 8 years. She is a mom. She's a business owner. She's doing all the things. And so I can't wait to get started and digging into her journey. So Shelby, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys, we're going to jump right in and go shoot rapid fire questions, kind of see where it goes, just because we need to use all of our time and pick her brain because she's so good at what she does. So Shelby, can you start by telling us a little bit about what Fempire Media does and how you work with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a full service advertising agency, primarily working on social media ads, right? So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, YouTube, etc., and really helping our clients attract more ideal customers and clients, but also really helping them with a strategy to convert those leads and that attention into sales, because that is, I think a lot of people fall short there. So that's what we do. We work primarily with online-based businesses, although I've worked with all types of businesses, certainly coaches, consultants. That is my expertise for sure.
Okay, let's talk about another level of expertise that you have. We talk about conversion. So for those of you listening who may or may not know conversions is simply turning your audience into paying customers, or at least that's how I define it. You mentioned businesses can struggle with conversion, especially those relying on like referrals and not using their network. Can you talk to us a little bit about some strategies and tips you have, and also common mistakes that you see when it comes to conversion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most common issues that I see are that either businesses are getting attention online or they are getting leads online, but then struggle to sell those leads their product, service, program, offer. Or I see a lot of business, another one I see so much of, and that is really building a business that is dependent on referrals. A caveat there could be dependent on organic reach too. We could go on a tangent on that, but I'll just say that a lot of business owners can get leads in, they can attract people, and I used to have this issue, to be fair. When I started my business, I'll tell you a quick story, is that I never had an issue attracting leads. I think my parents were business owners too. Being in that environment my whole life, basically, I learned a lot about marketing. So I think it was just kind of like, it's become who I am now. So I never had an issue attracting people. My issue became converting those people into sales. And again, lead generation specifically is just a part of marketing as a whole, but I could get them on the phone with me. I could get them to that conversion step, but I really struggled closing. And that was the sales piece of that. And so I've had to invest significantly in developing that skill set because, back in the day, I used to say sales was icky. I felt sleazy and slimy. And a lot of that had to do with my own experiences with sales, right? What I like to say is that it's more or less a holistic approach. And that is that your advertising, your marketing and sales should be cohesive. They should work together like a system. And so I like to break it down into 4 things, and that is attract, and that is usually your advertising piece. Okay. And that is the most reliable way to get new people to know who you are. Okay. Or to attract new people that are maybe problem aware, to understand that you provide a solution. And then we need to educate and nurture them. And if I'm just boiling it down to the very bare basics here, okay? Because we could go detailed, but educate and nurture is your marketing piece, and conversion is that sales piece. And so you need to have a process to be able to do that and a system to be able to do that effectively. And I think a lot of businesses owners, it's very clunky for them. And ultimately, what you don't want to do is bring somebody in and then try to sell them right away, because often that becomes, it's just like asking someone to marry you on the first date. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to have a process and that you're playing the long game. And it's not to say that you won't get sales quickly, but you want to play the long, I said quickie, going along with the first date thing, you could get a quickie. But you want to get the wedding ring, so you're going to have to date them a little bit and let them know who you are.
Okay, let's pause there, because there's probably people listening that are at the beginning stages that are like, oh my gosh, Shelby. Okay, so let's break it down. So number one, the 4 parts that you broke down, I think are just 1 and 2. So you said, okay, we've got to attract them. They've got to know what our business is. Come find us. Where are we at? Where are our social media? Where are we speaking? 2, we have to nurture and educate them once they're in our world.
Those are 2 and 3, so interchangeable, but you can make it 1.
Okay, so nurture and educate. And then what's the final one?
Convert. You want to convert that attention into sales.
Okay, cool. So where do you see referrals when a business is relying on referrals? Where do you see that limiting what they can do?
Sure. And that a lot of that is because when you're relying on referrals every time, I'm just saying, this is my experience. Is that you are not attracting, you don't have a marketing system, right? To attract and nurture and educate. And so I think a lot of business owners, you start off, and if you are new, don't shame yourself around this, because a lot of us start off this way, including myself. And that is that you get a couple clients, and sometimes it's people that you know or you're connected to, right? And maybe you go to networking meetings and you start meeting people and you start to get clients that way. And then they refer you to other clients, right? So, and that becomes the baseline of your kind of client or customer generation is through that. The problem with that is that you're putting your business in somebody else's hands. So often there comes a point when you've exhausted your current reach, right? And so those referrals get slower and fewer and far between, right? And truly, you're putting your business in somebody else's hands. So you're kind of twiddling your thumbs, waiting around for the next client to come. And that's a dangerous place to be in business. Now, if you think of, and I think this is where we have to zoom out and think of our business outside of ourselves. When we started it, it's like a part of us. And often we are the business because it's so much about our expertise. And you have to zoom out and think of your business long term. And what is the kind of exit plan? Is the goal to sell the business, right? And if that's the case, you can't sell a business without a consistent flow of new business coming in. Like, you need a predictable way to generate new clients. It's also going to be really hard when, I'll tell you right now, like, if your business is determined on referrals, what happens when a competitor comes in and outprices you in the market? They will eat your lunch, right? What happens when there's an economic downturn and now your clients are like, I have to let you go for a little bit. I'm so sorry. And then they're not referring you anymore because all of their friends and peers are also struggling in business. You too will struggle, right? There's so many instances, but a lot of it comes down to competition, right? An economic downturn can heavily impact your business if it is dependent on referrals. So you need a consistent way to generate leads and sales.
Yeah, I think you bring up a huge point that is hard to think about in the early stages, or if you've been doing something one way for a long time. I too was in, okay, oh my gosh, I left my full-time job. I'm going into business full-time. Where's my immediate network? Where can I use my resources, right? And so the thing that I have learned in the 2 years of entrepreneurship online full time is that you have to take that power and that control into your own hands. And so I love how you put that, and being able to create predictable streams of income is really important. Like you being able to look at your numbers and say, hey, this is working, or hey, this isn't working, and being fully in charge of that. And so I think that's really valuable. What are some of the common mistakes that you see when it comes to businesses in lead generation? Where do people need to steer clear or focus their attention?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I always say this, like you can't sell to an empty room. I like to start with that because a lot of times, especially if you are newer, but I see this with people that have been in business for a while, they are posting every day on social media. They're doing a bunch of stories. They're figuring out how to beat the algorithm, and they're studying that. And then they're putting out tons of content, and they think that more work or more output is going to equal more money for them. So they keep doing more. I've seen it all, right? It could look like more master classes, more offers, lowering your prices, trying to get people in. It could be starting a YouTube channel. Okay. Like now I just need to expand my reach. So I'm going to be everywhere. I'm going to be omnipresent. And so you start to do more and more. And then what inevitably happens is you are overworked and you're unexcited about your business anymore. And you start to question whether what you're doing is even a need in the market because you're not getting feedback, you're not getting sales, people aren't reaching out to you. And then you start to compare yourself to everybody else online who is saying like, oh my gosh, this one post made me 200K. And you start to go, what the hell's wrong with me? Because I'm doing exactly the same thing. I did more stories than this person this week. And you start to compare yourself, and then we make it about ourselves instead of there's just a fundamental strategic problem there. And that is that it's not about working more. It's about working smarter, not harder, right? We always hear this, but you can't beat the empowerment that comes when you know your numbers and data. And I know I'm not even a math person. Okay. I look at spreadsheets, like a lot of my day is looking at spreadsheets and looking at costs for things and calculating like marketing stats. And a lot of my day is around that. And then creating a strategy that's going to really leverage that for that client, right? Or make tweaks or adjustments so that we can get numbers to look good for the client. But there's just nothing like, you don't want to be walking around blind in your business. And when you understand, like my clients can tell you, it costs me this much money to get a new customer or client. Now, if you're reliant on organic marketing, and you see this online a lot, which is hilarious to me because I've worked with some of these people, and it is, I made all this money without ever running ads. Okay. And then they hire me or somebody else and I run some of their ads. And some of them, I know that they didn't make all that money organically because I know all of their numbers. So I always think that's really funny. But also, you don't get a badge of honor for like working so hard. Like, no thanks.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I used to subscribe to that, and I had to get off that train fast because I was like, there has to be a smarter way.
Exactly. Like the finish line is the finish line. It doesn't matter if you're like pulling weight behind you. It doesn't matter. You don't get a special medal. You did it extra. Nobody sees that. You know what I mean? So like, just get to the finish line. So also the goal is to build a business in a way that doesn't require you all the time. I've been in the position, as many business owners have, and maybe you have, and maybe if you're listening, like you've been in this, you've already experienced this. When you're sick or when you're down or something happens, because life be life and things happen. When that happens, not if, when it happens, right? And you have to step away from the business, and your business is dependent on you being there and driving it forward every day, you will experience significant loss in that business.
Yeah. We have to touch on this. I mean, because I know you're a mom. So this is something that I'm thinking of, and I know other business owners think of. I want to be a mom. I want to do all the things, but obviously pregnancy is going to, God forbid, if I get pregnant, it is going to require me to take a step back. So if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, but how do I separate myself from the business? Do you have any strategies that have worked for you when you've had to take a step away and ensure that things are still running where you're not feeling like you take that significant loss?
My answer to this is going to be kind of funny, I think, maybe. I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll tell you maybe what I would do differently. So I started my business like just after my oldest, was born. A lot of what I did was working when nap times were happening and at night, and I got up early. And I've worked with a lot of women that just have had babies, and it's a lot in the beginning. It's a lot when they're newborns. So support is everything, right? I wish I did have support when I had my second, and I wish I had that with my first. But again, like I didn't have any money to put into a business. It was bootstrapping. The second kid comes and it's a different financial situation and everything. If you are pregnant, I highly suggest like working towards creating a more passive sales system in your business and developing a little bit. It doesn't have to be a big team, but a small team to help things run so that things can move without you having to be on all the time. So I will say like the things that I did do especially with my second that were great is that we had a nanny. So when we moved from California to Arkansas, we figured out that it was going to be cheaper for us to hire a nanny to come to our house than it was for us to get daycare. It was actually going to be cheaper for us to get a nanny than it was for me to hire more help in the business. So it comes back to you have to look at your life instead of just typically business owners. We look at what do I need to outsource, right? But I want you to think of like your whole life. What can you outsource? And that is removing as much like mental weight as possible. And so we hired a college student to come a couple, 20, 30 hours a week or so. And she was fantastic. And she was with us for years until she graduated. And we still, like, she texted me last night. She hasn't worked with us for over 2 years now. She still comes and visits and stays with the kids. And she sends me pictures of our girls when they were little, And so you got to find somebody to kind of help you at home. I worked at home at that time. So like I still worked in the house when she was there, and I paid her, like she did really well after a couple months. And then I said, hey, I will pay you $2 more an hour if you can start doing laundry and dishes. And she was like, great, yeah. So she started doing our laundry and dishes and putting it away. So now I didn't have to do that. So now when I was not working, I was able to be more present with my kids and family. And that's important.
You guys, when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I had very few examples of women in leadership positions. And sometimes when I shared what I was building with my friends or with my coworkers at the time, they just didn't really get it. Even when I wanted to create some new goals and talk about those ambitions, I didn't feel like I had a community of women to share that with, which is why I found an online community of other multi-passionate, like-minded women. If you can relate, join us in our Rise Facebook community where you get free weekly coaching, a network of amazing women who are also in the arena, and you're the first to know about the latest offers. Women leaders rise together. See you inside our Rise Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes. Yeah, I think that was so funny when we were on the panel together, when everybody's unanimous answer to how do you start to hire was like a housekeeper. Everybody on the panel unanimous answer was like hire a housekeeper. And it is that thing that, again, it's not you being lazy. It's not you not being able to take care of your home. It is you being able to save the time and that mental weight, just like you said, so that you can focus on your business, because time is your most valuable resource. And if you're spending your time that you charge $300 an hour for doing the dishes and laundry, you're losing business and you're losing opportunity. And so I love that you said that about childcare. It reminded me of.
Yeah, you just have to be really smart about when you're working and what you're doing when you work. Like, you're not just sitting there on the computer, like figuring out what to do. And I think a lot of people do that. You have to have a plan going. It's like, when I work, these are the things that I get done. I have daily sales activities I have to do. I have to check these certain things. I have to check in on Voxer with my clients, or I have to check Slack, or you have to have a plan of how you spend your time. So it's super focused work. The other thing is like Instacart or Walmart Plus or whatever, like order your groceries, have them delivered. It does not cost that much more. Or go pick them up. Go order them at Walmart and pick them up. Whatever is that's going to reduce so much extra time. Unless like grocery shopping is something you love doing, I'm certainly not telling you to cut out things that bring you joy. I've never been joyful grocery shopping. And you always spend more money when you go to the store anyways, especially if you're hungry and you're like, oh, this is great. You know, so do that. Another thing, a lot of my clients do this, and I actually had this fantastic conversation with a client of mine. She hired a house manager. Her kids are about the ages of my kids, so like 6, 8, like elementary school age. But she has a house manager. So she has a house cleaner come every other week, and then she has a house manager come. And this is a girl that's a college student in the area. I think she pays her like less than $20 an hour. She comes for just a couple hours a week, but she does all the grocery shopping. So then, hey, that's all done. She just texts her like recipes she wants. So she comes, she does the dishes, she picks up, she does laundry and puts it away. And then she makes dinner and lunches and puts them in the refrigerator. So all they have to do is heat them up at night when they're done working.
That is brilliant.
Yes. And it's not that expensive. Really, you could find somebody that is not that expensive. And it's like, what a great job for a college kid too. You just go to someone's house and like cook and like do laundry, like whatevs, you know, you could listen to music while you do it. I don't care. Talk to family. I don't care. Talk to friends on the phone, whatever. But her kids' lunches are made by her and everything. So everything is done. And all she has to do when she's ready to eat is go downstairs and grab her little, container and put it in the microwave, whatever, and heat it up. And it's all done.
That is amazing. Yeah, to be able to save time like that, you're right. If you are a mom or if you are somebody that wants to be able to do it all, be like partner, mom, business owner, you do have to look at things a little bit different because us as women put a lot of that weight on our own shoulders. We do want to take care of all of that. We don't want to be nagging, our partner about all of that. But at the same time, it is a weight. Like it is an ongoing to-do list that's always there. And so unless you allocate someone to do it, you're going to be worrying about it. And so I think that's such valuable information.
And let's be really honest though, too. Like most men don't take that role on.
No.
Like it's just going to always be a fight that you have. If you feeling like you constantly have way more on your plate than everybody else. And there is a mental load that women have that men don't. And that's just is what it is, especially if you're a mom. But even not, like, it's like, okay, I got to make sure everybody's parents are okay. I need to check in with this person. I haven't called this person in a while. Make sure, Christmas is coming up. We got to make sure that everybody has their wrapping papers and the this and then that. And then, oh my gosh, I need to put this on my list of things that I need to do because Thanksgiving is coming up and I got to make sure I got to ask where we're going and figure that out. And there's so much. And then you add kids on top of that where it's like right before this, I had to re-register my kids for school, right? My husband is going to do that. He's going to, unless I asked him to, like he's not even checking his email to check that. So those things just innately are going to fall usually on your, like I'm just talking, there's going to be outliers. Some of you have like husbands that do all of that, but most of us are the planners, are the people that do a lot of that. And then you carry the mental load. So why have the conflict, right? Like why? You could easily build a multiple 6-figure business. You could build $500,000. You can build $1 million business a year, a 7-figure business a year by having 1 or 2 VAs and a housekeeper and maybe somebody to come like a house manager.
Yeah, I'm like making mental notes of this right now. I'm like house manager, the college is right around the corner. I have a digital marketing intern that works with me from the college, but I'm like house manager. Now we're talking, like this is amazing. Yeah, I love that. You had said earlier in the conversation that you had to really get serious about your sales training because you did a good job attracting your audience. And maybe there's somebody out there listening that is in the same position where they're really good at attracting their audience. They're really good at sharing information, but they're missing that sales piece or that conversion piece. What was a shift that you learned or something really valuable that changed your perspective on that, where you started getting more comfortable with the idea of selling or converting your audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my biggest mistake was that I tell the story often. It's like one of my core stories because I think it really shaped my entrepreneurship journey. When I was second year of business, up to that point, most of my clientele had come from referrals, right? I did pretty good. Like at that point, I was treating it very much as like this side business. It generated income. It did well, but it was like, I was also full-time college student at the time as well. So again, it was just like side business energy. Okay. I got to this place though, I started to see the potential in my business. This kind of like, oh crap. When I started to realize what other people were charging in my industry, and I just didn't pay attention to that kind of stuff in the beginning. But once I started to realize that, I was like, holy smokes, I could make more money doing this. And I love this than like even finishing out my degree and doing what I was going to school for. And so I said, okay, let's just kind of give this a go and see how this goes. So I think when I looked back at it, I just told this story the other day too. I think it was like almost 50 sales calls in 1 month. So again, I never had the issue of like marketing, putting out content, getting people to like, no, trust me. But what was happening is I would get on sales calls and they would ghost me essentially after. I started to take all these sales calls and didn't close one of them. Not one.
Wow.
And I was at this point too where I'm like, if I'm going to do this, like I have to make this work or I'm not going to be in business. So I started to look up podcasts and stuff for sales training. And I'd done some sales training before, but it was through like some icky male marketers that was horrible. Every bad thing you think about sales were those trainings. Okay. Like lying and manipulative and all of it. So I wanted to find a sales trainer or a sales coach that was a woman, because I was like, I just do not resonate with that at all. If that's what I have to do, then I'm not going to own a business. So I found somebody online. Her podcast is no longer available. Otherwise, I would shout it out. But I found this woman online and I started to listen to some of her podcast episodes. And I was like, okay, she's good. This is really good. And so I found her on Facebook after this, within a couple days. And I messaged her and I said, hey, I found your podcast. Thank you for sharing this. Like, I'm really struggling right now. I was very vulnerable at this point because I was like, this is do or die. And so I told her, she's asking me some questions like about my situation. I told her what happened. Like, I've just booked 50 sales calls. And again, I reiterate this thing of like, lead generation isn't my problem. I can get people on calls. I can get people to know me, like me, trust me, but I can't seem to close the deal. So she tells me, okay, give me a rundown of how your sales calls go. So I give her a rundown. She goes, everything actually sounds great. What do you say at the end? And I say, okay, well, I say, I'll go ahead and send you a proposal via email. And she said, don't do that. You're going to say the price on the phone. And I said, huh? And she says, say the price on the phone and then shut up and don't say anything else. And so I was like, really? She gets me so uncomfortable. It's going to be so uncomfortable when you do it. And there will be a pause, but the next person who speaks loses, right? So I said, okay. So I had 2 sales calls the next day and I closed both of them.
Wow. So she said, hold on. She said to say the price and then whoever speaks next loses. So you're keeping your mouth shut until your potential client says something.
Correct.
So what were you finding?
That I was telling people I was going to send them a proposal. And then I don't know if they just didn't check I was just being really too casual about it.
But what would they say?
I mean, the next one was like, it was a pause for a couple seconds. And inside you're just going like,
you're dying. Yeah, you're dying.
And then they're like, great, how can I pay? And they're like, it worked, and I'm trying to like stay cool at the time, be cool. And I was like, let me go ahead and send this over right now. And got it. Great. Pay. Great. Let's go ahead and set up your next call so that we can onboard you. And the same thing the next time. Because once you do it once, then you're like, this is possible, right? My new favorite thing to say is just instead of pausing, I say the price. Because when people book sales calls with me now, they already know the price. So, and they have to confirm that they're willing to invest that. So it's not like a big surprise when they get on the phone with me. But what I do say is, this is the investment. When do you want to get started?
Yeah, I like that.
And then it's assuming the sale, right? It's not like wishy-washy energy. You want to assume the sale.
Yeah, I think that's huge when it comes to selling. And what I found with the women that I work with in the entrepreneurial space, it is literally instead of asking the question or passively being like, go check out my website after they just spoke, nobody's going to go check out your website. But I think your story was a great example of you saying, okay, here's a problem. I'm going to go find a solution. I don't know what that looks like, but you heard this podcast, you felt like this person could help you and you went and looked for it. I think a lot of people in the like space of beginning. And I say beginning's probably still like up to 5 years or so. It's a grind up until that point, right? And like I'm in the middle of it. I'm swimming in the middle of it. I'm just up, literally this month is year 2. And so for you to be like, okay, this isn't working, I need to find a solution, is again, you taking responsibility and you taking radical responsibility for your business. And I think a lot of people will sit back and say, well, it must be about me, or I'm doing something wrong. And it's, well, why don't we shift the focus to correcting and like figuring out the solution? So I think that was really valuable that you shared that. When it comes to local businesses, for example, based on your expertise in your business and you working with entrepreneurs in the ad space, what has been the most effective channels for those locally to use to get new clients and customers?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the actual business, I think, and your target audience, right? However, I think Facebook and Instagram are still going to be like prime, to be honest. One of my favorite things right now is, and we've seen it work across all industries like so well. And we do this with almost all of our clients now. And that is what I like to call the Layup Leads method. It works great for local-based businesses as well. And that is like Instagram Messenger ads. But in addition to that, it's understanding your profile has to become more or less like a sales funnel. And so your content has to shift, because when people click on your ads to message you, they're going to check out your profile and they need to understand what you do, why you're different. There's a lot that needs to go on your profile to create that quick conversion, right? It really does reduce your time from when a lead comes in to when they buy.
So you're saying that ads are run in the Facebook message. Do you have to message that person before? If I land on your Instagram and I send you a message, am I getting an ad from that, or how does that work?
I'll get techie a little bit here and you can interrupt me to clarify. It's an Instagram ad for Instagram. And when they click on the ad, it goes to message you like some sort of word or term to either get an estimate, or this works great for service-based businesses, right? But you can also tweak it for, let's say that you own a boutique or something. It could be like DM us for a 20% off coupon or something like that. What we see works best is we always test, right? But reels are obviously like the thing that's getting the most attention online. So we typically will go with some sort of reel and we'll test 2 or 3. You're going to post them on your Instagram actually. And then we run ads to it. We don't boost posts. We run ads to it, targeting, like hyper targeting your area and your target audience. And then what happens is it also kind of boosts the engagement rate of your profile, which means that it shows like a lot of your content that you do post organically will then also show up more to your followers. It's kind of this double whammy. We kind of trick the algorithm by doing it, which is really cool. So when they click on the ad, they go and it messages you. Okay. And then now you can have a direct conversation with them. And we have a bunch of sales scripts, like DM scripts, to actually help kind of move that into a sale. And then furthermore, after you've run that for a bit, you can start to run retargeting ads to anybody who's messaged you. So now, and these are like really inexpensive ads. So you can run retargeting ads for a couple bucks a day. And these are 2 people who have messaged you or engaged with your ads. And they're going to get maybe in other videos like, hey, were you on the fence thinking about this or this? And then you can kind of explain what you do and why now's a great time to work with you, etc. You can make new ones every couple weeks or so, but they're easy. And like, it really does create this kind of like ecosystem inside of Instagram for you. And it doesn't require a ton of advertising dollars. Like, you can spend $30 a day is what I would recommend starting with. And then up to, obviously, some clients are spending like hundreds. And that's not even, I mean, I have clients that are spending a lot more than that on other different types of ads. You can get messages. We have one client getting messages for $6 right now, another one for $13. Anything under $30 is great as long as they're qualified, Like, it's not like some weirdo. When you first turn them on, you might get some weird messages because that's just how it works. But
yeah. That's brilliant. I think using the messaging, I think that got a bad rep for a while. Like DMing feels like, again, one of those like dirty sales tactics. But I mean, truthfully, if you do it the right way, it can, I've been DM'd from like people that I've been interested in their masterminds and things. And there's a really nice like flow. If it feels conversational, then it doesn't feel like somebody's just like messaging you like, hey, are you interested in buying this? There's a very good flow. And I like how you described that whole ecosystem, because that's what it turns into. And that's, again, where you can predict your incoming leads. And so I think that's huge. If you're somebody who's not working with an ad agency or isn't quite to the income level that can afford to put a ton of advertising dollars behind what you do, where would you say is a really good place to start for that person?
I'll say this real quick. Like, my favorite part of that layup leads method is that it's people who are problem aware finding you and messaging you first. So you're fishing and not hunting. And so there's a fundamental difference. So it just feels lighter too. So you're not like finding people and having to message them. And it's not that game of having to go follow a bunch of people on Instagram and engage in their content all the time and then hope that they follow you back, or on Facebook, add a bunch of friends and then hope they see your posts and stuff like that. So like, you don't have to do anything. They're coming to you, which I love. And then how I would start that, I mean, I have a very low ticket kind of mini course that walks through that entire method. It's not expensive at all. It's under $50 and it walks you through exactly how to set it up on your account.
Oh, I think that would be hugely valuable. If we can drop that in the show notes, that would be awesome for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would probably start there. Then furthermore, just starting to create more reels and content on Instagram that are really educating your audience and engaging them. I think that's important. I think a lot of people post content that is not, it's maybe entertaining, right? And if you've ever gone like viral or anything, you know that, oh, cool, but nothing happens. Like, you don't get more sales.
Okay, can you talk about your viral like tanning video then? Like, just give an example, because I feel like that's really applicable.
I have a viral video on Instagram, a reel, that is me sharing a story about how I got a spray tan before I got married. And I looked like an Oompa Loompa, like bad, right? And so I walked in, I'm telling the story, and I walk into the tanning place and I say, give me your darkest tan. And why? Don't know. Don't ask me questions. And they were like, yeah, here's our darkest one. And so I go and get it and I come out, and then the two ladies that owned the tanning salon, they were like, wow, it doesn't look that bad. We were too scared to try it. Like, it was way too dark for us. And I'm thinking like, that doesn't make me feel good, right? When I'm walking out. And then I got home and my husband was like, whoa, what? And we had, this is a complete side story here, but we had a pest control guy, like the guy that would come spray for bugs at our house. My husband becomes friends with everybody that we know. So he's buddies with the pest control guy would just like come over in between jobs to like their home because they formed a friendship. And he was at our house the next day or something. And Anthony's like, Shelby, come here. And I was hiding in the hallway. I knew if he saw me, he was going to freak out. And so I was like, yeah. He's like, no, come here. And I said, I can hear you from here. And he's like, no, come here. And I came around the corner and our pest control guy went, whoa. It was so embarrassing. It did wash off, like, to look decent after. But that was after like 3 showers, scrubbing my body. So I didn't look like I was trying to like blackface wedding day. So that's the video that went viral. And it was, I mean, you could go look at it. There's a lot of mean comments on there. So I don't even check comments anymore because thankfully I'm in a good spot where it doesn't bother me. But I still get followers from that every day, and they're not ideal clients. So going viral doesn't mean that it's going to...
money. Yeah, it doesn't translate to money. I just thought it was an interesting story because the landscape of social media is just the wild, wild west. And there's like, I remember like my viral content that I had posted, literally, I just thought, man, this is so silly. There's so much more valuable content on here. But so, okay, this is really helpful. And I feel like this is one of those podcast episodes where we're going to have to go back and listen to and take some notes and definitely get into that freebie. You called it the layup lead method.
The layup leads method, yes.
Yeah, layup leads method. Okay, definitely go check that out in the show notes. So Shelby, there's one more question that I ask all of our guests on the Women in the Arena podcast. And the podcast is specifically about women literally in the arena, like going for what they want. Like you finding that podcast host and going and asking, how can you help me? Right. And so really, I want to know, aside from like the people in the sidelines or the people on the stands, what does it mean to be a woman in the arena in your definition?
Being a woman in the arena is, honestly, I think it's really about like brutal self-awareness and being willing to ask yourself the hardest questions that others are not willing to ask. It's, when there is failure, because there's going to be failure, and it's not being afraid of it, but it's asking like, why isn't this working? Or what am I doing? And being self-aware enough to know that something isn't working and then ask the questions so that you can go find the help or keep going. Because a lot of people, I think, get stuck in a cycle in life, and they have a hard time breaking free of that. So every year is kind of the same year. Every season of life is kind of similar because they keep replaying the same shit over and over. And I think that truly being in the arena with like blood, sweat, tears, battle wounds is oftentimes actually self-inflicted. You have to be willing to go like, why do I keep hurting myself?
It's powerful. It's so funny because initially when I started the podcast, I thought, I wonder how many times I can ask this question where I'll get a similar response, and that we have yet to do it. And it's our 1-year anniversary is this month. And so I think that's pretty cool. But I have to know, is there another question that comes to mind for you when you say asking yourself the brutal question? Is there more than just like, what's not going right or why am I hurting myself? What's another really valuable question you can ask yourself?
Okay, so I don't know if it's a question, more so this is a realization I had recently that I think this is going to help everybody, okay? And that is, there's a reason why the most successful people are so adamant about journaling all the time, every day. As somebody who's spent most of her adulthood not wanting to journal, like, what am I going to say? But the fact is, like, when it's stuck in here, I think we tend to, like a computer, right? Like when you're on Google Chrome and you have all the tabs open, you're just flipping from tab to tab all day long. And so you never spend time on like, it's just a lot going on, right? Everything's a new tab, right? Another task. And so being able to sit down and write out like anything that comes to mind, it doesn't have to make sense. Just dumping like whatever is coming to mind and letting it flow. There's so much power in that. And I think you'll find that you start to realize patterns for yourself. And you'll also realize things that are like holding you back that you haven't realized. I think less about asking yourself questions, but more being willing to sit there and get quiet for 20 minutes a day. Like you don't need a ton of time, but just sit there with a journal, pen and paper. You need pen and paper because I think that's important. And letting whatever come out that's going to come out. And sometimes that's just you writing, I don't know what to write 50 times on a piece of paper. And that's fine. And give yourself permission to do that. And what you'll find is that you probably have some perfectionism around that because you sit there and then you're mad at yourself that you don't know what to write. And so then now it's like, now I'm mad at myself. Oh my gosh, I have issues around this. Like where else am I self-sabotaging in my life that I'm mad at myself because I can't think of a solution or I can't think of how to perform or complete this task. And so I just get mad at myself and beat myself up. I'm doing it, writing this stupid journal page. Now I'm doing, so you're going to find that whatever is supposed to be revealed to you in that season is going to be revealed to you, but it only happens when you're quiet. That's where you're going to get, I think, the biggest shifts, and they may not even be big, but it's like the things that are going to make the biggest difference, I think, come down to that.
I think that's so valuable and powerful to remind yourself to be quiet because you're so in this loop of like go, do, create, and you're used to working hard and seeing that return. And so it almost feels counterproductive to sit and be quiet and be still, but I couldn't agree with you more. And I can't thank you enough for your time. I mean, it's been like almost 52 minutes and I feel like it's been 10, and I feel that way every time we talk. And so thank you so much for sharing everything with us. Where can people find you to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest. At Life with Shelby on Instagram, and you can feel free to send me a message there. And then also we'll put that link to the Layup Leads method below so you guys can grab that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I hope today's episode inspired you on your journey in the arena. Make sure to check out the show notes in the description for a rundown of today's show with all the important links. If you enjoyed this, please share with a friend. I know how much it means to me when my friends share podcasts. Leave us a review and let us know what landed with you over on Instagram at Paige_Renee15. As always, your best bet is on yourself.